Let me know when you're starting the music.
Oh, Ray, do you have the
Nope, just my computer.
What do you mean dialed in?
I think he's probably trying to figure out why the echo is. Trying to see if somebody
has a phone and computer.
Okay.
No, it's just a computer. I see two images of you. I don't see your visual now.
All right, welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, J.R. Stewart.
And good evening, everyone. I am your co-host, Tommy Duncan. Welcome into this Wednesday night.
So Tom, why don't you introduce our guest and the topic for tonight?
All right, everyone. Well, of course, it's Wednesday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Central, and that is time for Black Men Speak. We'd like to welcome you tonight, where we are continuing our show and our focus on the Black economy. As several of you may know, we had a special guest on last week, and we had such a great conversation that we did not finish, that we decided to bring Mr. Ray Hodges, MBA, back to Black Men Speak so we can dig a little bit deeper into what's going on with the Black economy, what the issues are, and how to repair it. So say hi, Ray, as we kind of continue from last week.
Good evening. And Tommy and Jimmy, I surely appreciate you guys inviting me back. I enjoyed the conversation last week. Again, I'm appreciative that you felt that we wanted to continue it and you invited me back. So I'm grateful, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. So there was some storylines that we began to delve into last week, and a couple of provocative concepts came up when it came down to what the state of the Black business is. I mean, what the state of the economy is in America. Black businesses in particular, how many of us, are very, very clear as to how a lot of our businesses are undercapitalized and have historically struggled from systematic and institutional hurdles that still continue to this day, but also when you brought like very interesting concepts and theories as to things that other folks are doing that we may want to consider as a model. Obviously, we know that everything that everyone does not particularly work for us, but there are some principles and some theories that I think are universal.
Absolutely.
So what we're going to do, I think first is, I don't know, Jimmy, if you have any thoughts before we kind of continue our conversation for last week, let us know if there are any thoughts or questions that you have. Not, and if not, we're gonna continue.
Yes, so let's continue and let's get ready to show us the money.
So last week, right before we got off, we kind of pivoted and started talking. We talked about, some of the things that challenge our community, and then we kind of pivoted and we briefly started talking about concepts like, and roughly the concept of a rotating credit association, right? And to just kind of set the tone or the context. You guys have probably heard this expression. It's an African expression, and it's probably apropos that it would be African, because the expression says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Mm-hmm. And that concept
is one that we as a community need to embrace if we want to ever, I don't even know if we want to catch up, because we've talked about how far behind we are. But if we want to go further, the way to do that is to do it together. And a rotating credit association is a concept that I believe is African. If you read about it, it's attributed to many different cultures. But the Africans have something called susu that is really pretty much the same thing. And at the highest level, the idea is you have X amount of people. Usually, when other ethnic groups have done it, they do it when they get here because they typically don't have, the identification necessary and what have you in some situations to go the traditional route for financing, right? But what happens is you have several families typically or historically, several families come together and they decide we are going to commit to contributing X amount of money per month into an account, right? It could be a bank account, and what happens is after the grouping phase, after a certain amount of time, one person in particular will be chosen who's going to invest that money in whatever business, right? The idea is that individual all of a sudden has funding they wouldn't have been able to get traditionally, and everyone in that group has a vested interest in promoting that family to start, say, a business that everyone in the group will obviously patronize. What happens is that concept, the rotation comes about because what happens is it pivots like another 6 months, someone else gets an opportunity to do it. And so you do that all the way around so that everyone has an opportunity to start a business, right? Or to invest in whatever endeavor they see fit to invest in.
So let me ask you this. I mean, you bring up a very interesting theory, a strategy in terms of how to leverage your capital base in order to expand your economy. So let's back up a little.
Okay.
So in your knowledge and your history in financial services, working with individual households, working with entrepreneurs, even with businesses, what do you think are the issues that have led to most of our businesses being undercapitalized? How does this potentially address it?
So it's a good question. From most of
the things that I've seen, listened to, a couple things usually happen with our businesses. We do not, and we see this in personal households as well, right? We typically do not plan for cash reserves, right? You'll see businesses in our community that will operate right to the edge, right? Every bit of cash flow they accrue, they spend, right? Instead of deciding this is what we're going to do, just like a household, where you determine I'm going to set aside some percentage of my revenue, and that will be cash reserves. I see a lot of our businesses not doing that. And
now, this is kind of similar to the concept of account that we call retained earnings.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is the concept of not saving or the concept of not a lack of knowledge, or is that a lack of discipline, or is that something else?
And this is my own opinion. It's about discipline, because when you think of savings in general, what you're saying, you're saying to yourself, I am going to forego the use of these funds so that they might accrue, and I could, invest in something that's going to expand my business at a later date. So what we're talking about typically is the same thing you notice in personal situations, is that inability to delay gratification in a lot of instances.
So there are a lot of folks who they talk about opening their business. They have to self-fund it or maybe get a loan from their family. And So there's this concept of throwing everything back into your business in what they consider a positive or constructive way. Where they're reinvesting everything to make sure their business grows. So what you're saying, that may not always be a good thing.
No, I don't think it's
the best thing to do. I understand the spirit of what they're doing, right? They're saying I'm totally committed to my business and I want to grow it. But just like I said, in individual situations, there will be things that will occur. Let's look at the pandemic. It's my opinion that a lot of businesses, not just our businesses, but a lot of businesses were operating right to the edge of their cash flow. And then when the pandemic hit, that's why most of them got wiped out, right? And I was sitting there scratching my head that there were so many that were knocked out because, the notion or the thought of a rainy day fund in individual situations. I tell a lot of like young professionals to build what I call the go to hell fund, right? You go somewhere to work, and if you saved 6 months emergency funds, then you have a lot more leverage, right? And same thing in a business. So I was kind of blown away when the pandemic hit that so many businesses were taken under. But what it did was it reminded me that a lot of businesses do not have cash reserves so that they can make it through maybe some of those lean times.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And I know obviously we talked about this on the last show as well, that with the government assistance that a lot of businesses got during the pandemic, what we found out, a lot of that money was going to larger, very well capitalized businesses, including the NFL, to name a few, and a lot of the smaller businesses that were in probably the least advantageous position to weather the storm really did get a large bulk of that money.
Oh, I turned off. Sorry. Yeah,
there was a lot of that. Unfortunately, we saw businesses that are actually, corporations. So in order to qualify, they had like franchises who applied as if they weren't part of a larger corporation, which is, was one of the ways they got around some of the requirements for PPP and the other loans.
Gotcha. So when we start talking about this concept, and I'll put it in my layman's terms, pooling your resources collectively and then leveraging that to get more money. Tell me or kind of illustrate to us, kind of what you've seen, how you think it might work in our community, or how you think we might have to adapt that concept. Because, clearly there are certain cultures, certain groups of people that some might consider to have a economic or a cultural advantage in America, pertaining or related or compared to Black folks in particular.
Hey Ray, do me a favor, because you don't have a headset on. Your speakers are pushing our sound back into the mic. I was going to ask, when you're not speaking, could you mute yourself?
Actually, I think Ray has some headsets. So we're
gonna great.
I'm grabbing them now.
All right, good deal. So what we'll do is and Jimmy, actually, you sound a lot better now. That's feedback when you talk. I hear a little feedback on our end, maybe on the side. Since I have the earbuds here, we'll see if that corrects.
Yes, the listening audience hears all of it, so the audio is really bad. So putting the headsets on will help.
Good deal. And by the way, folks, if you'd like to call in.
Oh, there we go. That's much better.
Perfect. If you'd like to call in, join, do please give us a call, 972-497-2280. We'd love to get your feedback, get your thoughts or suggestions to anything that's being said. Again, 972-497-2280 to Black Men Speak. All right, go ahead, Ray. We were in essence kind of addressing, if we look at being able to pool your collective capital, even if it's at a very small level, How do we adapt this to our cultural needs and our community's needs compared to what Asians or Latinos and or other groups have done?
So I'll give you an example of how the Asians are really, really leveraging this concept, and it's
Uh-huh.
been extremely successful. Then I'll tell you about an example that I'm actually using right now in my own investment life. So Asians, as we already know, are heavily steeped in black hair care products.
Yes, they are.
So and if when you dig into that industry, in order to get into that space and offer products at a very competitive price, you have to buy in volume. That's the only reason they're able to offer those products so inexpensively, because they buy in volume. In order to buy in volume, we're going to re-engineer this thing, from forward back. So in order to buy in volume, that means you got to have a nice amount of capital up front to purchase your product,
Correct.
right? The inventory, your supplies for your store. What the Asians have done is they've done just what we talked about. They've used the rotating credit association to build that capital. Most of those stores are usually owned by several families, right?
Okay.
Because what happens is those families have come together and they said, "Oh, for X amount of months, we're going to invest in some fund where we can accumulate the money." Some individual is chosen via, and sometimes they do it by lottery. Sometimes they'll have another method to figure out who will be the face of the money, so to speak. When I
Okay.
say that, what that means is when they go to the bank and the bank says, "Well, how much collateral?" So this person says, "I need X amount of funds." Some multiple of whatever they have in collateral, right? And the bank says, okay, you say you need $500,000. Let me see what you have in savings as far as collateral for this loan. They pivot, and then in this account, like, the bank doesn't know, and nor do they really care. This bank represents money that's been invested or contributed by, say, 10 families. So once the bank sees that they've accumulated, let's say 100 grand, 150 grand, then the bank says, "Oh, I can loan you a multiple of that," right? Because
Right.
this individual has this amount of money in the bank. They're a bank member that's in good standing. Now they have the funds that they need to go out and actually provide products for that entire store, and they can buy the products in bulk. So that's an idea that we see happening over and over again. When you see all these stores, they're doing that using this concept. Most of those stores are owned by several families, right? So
And so what you're saying is, Ray, that you could have, I don't know, 20 families
mhm,
contribute $5,000. You have $100,000 in a collective pool bank.
yep,
The bank sees they have $100,000 and they may loan them 400,000.
absolutely. Happens every day.
And,
That's
and then
exactly how it
and,
works.
and then do they move the money to the next person to control it, so they can go get a loan for the also?
Yeah. So what happens is, to your point, good question, Jimmy. So now we go another, X amount of months, whatever we've all agreed to, we're going to invest for 6 months or whatever it is to accumulate whatever the set target is. Then the lottery is held or whatever, and yet another person gets the same opportunity, right? Now we have another person who is the face of the money that's been accumulated over that amount of time. So what happens is this ethnic group, or this group of families, they all begin to have businesses, and obviously those folks are going to patronize. Everyone's patronizing the same businesses, right? Because
Right.
you're a part of this group that we've started, and so this is how they fund their businesses, right? Without having to go they go the traditional route once they get the seed money. Because in most situations, that's your challenge, right? When
Right.
you go to a bank, they want to know what your collateral is, right?
Right.
Not only your credit score, but what do you have to collateralize this loan? How am I going to protect? The bank wants to know, and that's one of the more fundamental things that our community has to understand. If we take the emotion out and understand the process, we're like, okay, this bank is worried about risk, so we have to position ourselves to look like less of a risk. If
Right.
we have X amount of funds on the, as far as our collateral, and that person is the up front, they may have better credit, right? And that's okay. We position the person who has the best credit, so we increase our chances of getting the larger amount. So that's what the Asians are doing, and we see it happening time and time again. I hear people saying, "Well, it's just easier for Asians to get loans." When financial institutions want to loan money, there are certain things they're looking for, right? And you just because you have a quote unquote great idea does not guarantee you're going to get money, right?
Correct.
They want to know what the business plan is. Tell me how you know what's going to be your potential cash flows, right? They want to see a pro forma on how that business might perform, but they also want to see how credit worthy you are and what is your collateral situation. So, so that's what the Asians are doing. But another thing that you can do, and this is what I'm doing right now with a couple of brothers that I've been knowing a long time, and you guys I think are already in this space, in the real estate space. Um, in most instances, you need a certain amount of money. If it's not going to be your primary residence, you need what, like 15%, right? Most of these companies will finance what they call 85% of
Right.
LTV, loan to value, right? So, but if you get in a position where you're trying to buy, like we're trying to buy, we're looking at multifamilies, small multifamilies, so anywhere from 2 to 4 properties. So once those properties get up in value, 250, 300 to 500,000, you're talking about a sizable amount of money in order to get into that space, right? And
Gotcha.
so, whatever 15% is of, pick an amount in that 400, 500,000 range, you're talking about a nice chunk of money. So the question becomes, how do we as blacks, how do we get into that space if we're trying to do it individually? That's hard,
Hard,
right?
yes.
Yeah. And so what happens is if you come together with 3 or 4 people and you split that down payment and those closing costs, now like say the three of us, we split that or we add another one, we split say, 60 grand to get into this space as 20 or 30, if it's let's say it's four of us. It's 15 a piece, right? Is that
Right.
right? If we got
Right.
if we need 60, that's 15,000 a piece. Now 15,000 is not a number to sneeze at, but that's much more. That's much more attainable, right? That's something that, and if we do something very simple, like put together a very simple agreement where we've decided we're going to split all proceeds by, be it cash flows, be it appreciation when we sell the property, we're going to split it 4 ways. It's 25% a piece. It's very easy to put that document together. Then because a lot of times the other concern is how do I protect myself? Well, if we put a we you know we create like a really simple limited liability company or something like that. It's so easy to make sure everybody gets paid in that situation. So that's a very simple way for us to do something collectively.
Well, Ray, I like
So
all your
let me ask you.
ideas because I believe like everything. I mean, you look around the landscape. Every major American corporation and even Western corporation, or even Eastern corporation, all built on investment. Very few people are succeeding by themselves, except black folks. Every generation of black folks is starting from the starting line by themselves, trying to build something, and then we wonder why we can't catch up with other people who are collectively doing stuff.
Yep.
So let me ask you this: if I'm doing the math on this, if I was reading your concept, you have four people, four partners.
Yep.
They put in $15,000 into a pool,
Yep.
and at a loan to value of 85%, then they can afford a $400,000 real estate investment, give or take.
Yes. 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 Absolutely.
Folks, that's the simple math, and that's power. That is the power of what we call leverage, right?
Absolutely. It's Go
So
ahead.
let me ask you this: what do you see as the other than access to capital? How much would this money, for instance, have to be in the bank or wherever it has to be in order for it to be credible? The
Uh,
bank or whomever the lending institution is.
So here's that's a great question, Tom, because right now I'm in conversation with a finance company. All I needed to do and all we needed to do was show proof that we had it. That's all they needed to see.
Mm,
Otherwise, they need to see, they don't need to see it all in one pot. They just need to see that you have 15, I have 15, Jimmy has 15, and then person D has $15,000 in the bank.
Absolutely. It's, I mean, I hate to make it sound like it's quote unquote easy, but I guess what I want to say is the
It's,
steps to do it are very clear cut. We just have to execute. We just have to execute.
Knowledge. Well,
Right.
what I guess to the point, knowledge and discipline.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to your point, we have to have the knowledge, we have to have the discipline to execute, and then we just have to do it, right? This is this is all intentional. So I'll say this, and I know it sounds funny, but you guys know that I'm telling the truth. You know, a lot of us, if we accumulate 15 grand, we probably trying to go buy a luxury automobile,
yes.
right? You know what I mean? Let's just be honest. We're doing
I don't know
something.
what kind of luxury automobile you're gonna get with 15. Well, I guess if you're financing it, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're
Right.
not trying to buy it outright. But like if you like you always had your heart set on pick a
Mhm.
crazy expensively, expensive vehicle, say a Bentley or whatever. They said, this down payment, and people do it. People do it all the time. Well, for us it probably sounds like not the smartest idea, but to your point around having discipline, if you're intentional and you say, you know what, I know what kind of return I can get from going this route. I make up my mind I'm going to save 15 grand. Or the other thing is the thing about real estate, and we don't have to necessarily stay on real estate, but I think real estate is an avenue that we have not really pursued aggressively enough. Our community hasn't, because most ethnicities are really heavy into real estate, especially
Right.
the Asians. But the beauty of the real estate industry, on the real estate opportunity, is a lot of us, because we went in the corporate route, we went the corporate route, and so we did commit certain amount of money to 401k. You can redirect your 401k to self-directed IRAs, and they allow you to invest that qualified money in real estate. So a lot of, there may be somebody saying right now, well, Ray, I don't have 15 grand, right? But they might turn around and say, but yeah, I do. I guess I do have 60 grand, or name a number. I have 120 in my 401k. You can set up a self-directed IRA, and whatever money you put in that self-directed IRA can be invested in real estate.
So what you're saying is, for our audience, our listening audience, that 401k is traditionally put in the equities market, a mutual funds or
Right.
something like that, where over time it's earning some interest. You can basically put that money into transfer that money into a self-directed IRA. It does not have to go into a mutual.
No, no, it doesn't. And that those monies can
People are
be, and
thinking,
people,
well, it has to go into a mutual fund of some sort.
no, doesn't have to. People are doing that left and right, uh, using those monies, because there are some people who are saying, okay, the return I'm getting on my 401k is subpar, and so they're saying they're projecting out their retirement, and rightfully so, they're saying, you know what, at the rate this is growing, or the rate that I'm getting hit and hurt on this, it's never going to accumulate the kind of money that I'll need for a retirement. And so some people are looking to self-directed IRAs to do more in the real estate space. So you have that opportunity, um, to use those funds to do other things. To your point, uh, Tommy, instead of only looking at equities, you have that opportunity to move some of that money and invest in real estate.
So
So,
you mentioned that the Asian community has been highly leveraging, probably not just for 0 because I think per capita, Jim, we may have talked about this before, that they are probably one of the highest per capita in terms
not
of
one
having
of, they are
discipline.
the highest. There's not one
Yes,
of,
there
they
you
are
go.
the. They're king of the hill.
So the question is, they're leveraging their capital. So, well, I kind of say this tongue in cheek, right? Is this the reason why we see so many Asian owned hair product or hair care product stores, so many donut shops, so many cleaners, so many hair and nail shops? Are they leveraging this theory in order to open all of these shops that we see practically in every
Yes.
corner?
Without question, that's the only way, because as you guys already know, you interact with them, and they're all, usually very civil and very polite and what have you. But if we're honest, a lot of these situations, if you walk in and interact with the store owner, their English, right? They're still growing their English skills.
Right.
So
Yes.
you have to automatically ask yourself, and instead of, like I said, remove the emotion and ask yourself, okay, I see that they don't speak English very well, so that probably limits a lot of the avenues that they might go to secure funds. Because the question should be always, as you walk in, how did they open this store? When you start thinking logically, there's only one or two ways that anybody could accumulate enough money in non-traditional ways, and this is absolutely one of the ways. This is where you can get proof that they're using this. When you talk to some of the store owners, as you can tell, I do it because I'm always motivated by people who are taking chances entrepreneurially. So I'll ask questions, and as you interact, this just happened at the nail shop for me and my family. So I'm talking to the owner, and he gives me a card to a crab restaurant because, as you know, I don't know if you guys know, but boiled crab, the Asians have picked up on the fact that our community likes seafood, so
Yes.
they're opening these
Number
restaurants.
one consumer of seafood.
Exactly, in the
Yes.
whole country, right?
Mhm.
Per capita. So they're opening these crabs restaurants. So he gives me a card to a restaurant. We're at the nail place, and he says, "Hey, you guys should try this store." And he says, "I know the owner."
Of course, it's probably his brother.
My cousin, my
Right,
brother.
right. And I just smiled. I said, "Thank you." He said, "Yeah, go and try it. You're gonna really love it." Right up. So he is doing. I mean, he's okay. So who that person has started their business, right? And he's co-marketing, right? Okay, we got a customer who's come in to get his nails done while he's here. Let me tell him about the other business that we have, so he can go spend.
Otherwise, let me take some more of your money.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. I mean, let me, let's see if we can get an additional sale from this particular customer. And but again, back to your original question, it's almost obvious to me that that's why he did that, right?
Well, Ray,
Amazing.
I got a proposal for you. So, I'm a big proponent, and I speak to as many people as possible, because I don't like the thought, I don't like the idea of us always considering ourselves to be poor and not having money.
Yeah,
That's the number one thing. Well, we don't have any money. Well, you can build
right.
mega churches with no money somehow. You can make pastor rich, with no money. But when it comes to doing something for yourself, investing in your own community, now money becomes an issue. So here's one of the things I always say: if you can get 100 people together and who can afford $20 a week, you guys could raise that group of 100 can raise $100,000 a year just off your $20. And if you do what you're saying, take $100,000 and go leverage that at 15-20% with the bank to go buy property. Your investment group of 100 can do this every year. Especially if you're
Mhm.
talking about buying multifamily dwellings, small apartment complexes. A lot of times you can get reasonably priced under $1 million. And on top of that, your investment group will have someone in there that's maybe a person like you, an attorney or an accountant or a marketing person. You have some skills in that group that you don't have to go out and purchase for the business that you invest in, or the project that you're doing. And whatever you decide to do with that money, you starting off with 100 customers. If you don't go patronize your own business, then don't ask anyone else to do it. And this is something that I'm telling that the person working at McDonald's can squeeze $20 a week out of their budget. They really, I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking $1,000 a year, which should not bankrupt even the minimum wage worker. So when people say they don't have the money or we don't have the money collectively, I say BS. I say, hey, we can come up with the money if we want to. It's just a matter of, do we really want to, or we just want to complain about the problem.
No, I mean, you make a great point. That's why we keep saying that all of this has to be intentional. You have to, we as a people or whatever small group, because we need to talk about the number. There's usually when you do these rotating credit association
Hmm.
situations or SUSU, there's a number of people that you have to try to maintain, and there's been some studies around what that sweet spot is,
Okay.
because once you get beyond a certain number, it becomes hard to manage it, right? You it gets beyond the amount of people that you can get to fully commit to what's going on,
Well, we found
right?
out the hard way with our investment club. What's the magic number, Ray?
I think it all depends. It all depends. It depends on who you talk to. Sometimes I think I've seen where they've said, really, you want to stay between 10 to 15, and then I've seen other studies where they say if you get over 20, that's where it becomes unmanageable, right?
Okay.
Because
Oh
what
yeah.
you're looking for people that are like-minded, right? Have the same goals, have the same commitment to how long we're going to let this process go. Is the I guess the fear is that once people, because this happened to me in an investment club I was involved in some years ago. Once the money gets to a certain amount, right, you accumulate a sizable amount,
Hmm.
and individuals start to realize how much they've committed. Then people in some instances who are not really, they're not as committed as they thought they were. They're thinking, oh man, I've invested $5,000. I really would like to get that $5,000 back so I could do some rehab on my house or something you
Five
know
Take,
thousand dollars. How
take,
much rehab are they going to be able to do with five
take
thousand
Tom.
dollars?
They want to take a trip. They want to maybe go to Case Jewelers and get some jewelry.
seriously
You know,
seriously
uh, uh,
seriously that consumerism that is kind of steeped in us, that kicks in, right, in some instances. So it's really incumbent upon you to find people that, when you guys come up with your bylaws or whatever you come up with, this is how long we're going to invest it. You have to commit, and this is some of the things you might write into your agreement. You have to commit this money for X amount of months or years. If you decide to early withdraw, in the agreement, there's going to be a penalty, right?
Ray, where were
Uh,
you a year ago, man? You said the same thing I'm saying. With my investment, with our investment club, I said the same thing. If you want to withdraw your money, there has to be a penalty. So you have to encourage people to be in for the long haul. But of
mhm.
course, I got vetoed and overridden. People
Right,
thought that was too harsh. But the reality
right.
is you're tying up people's time. And I don't want your money today for you to come back and ask for it tomorrow. I mean, you're wasting
Yeah.
our time now. So
Well,
yes. Go
so
ahead.
the penalty is something that's
Half.
very, I mean, ouch. It's it's very
Man,
Ham, Jimmy,
it,
you sound like a divorce attorney now.
half,
Ham.
Tom. We need to ask for
but
half. If you leave within the first 2 years, half off the top. You only get half back.
Jimmy, a penalty is very consistent with what happens in the financial
Yes, I said the
world.
same thing. That's exactly
It's
right.
like if you invest in an annuity, there's a
Yep.
sliding surrender
Yep.
charge. If
True.
you invest in a CD and you withdraw
Correct.
the money before
True.
maturity, you pay a penalty. So
Same
this,
with the 401k.
right, right. This is not a foreign concept. It's foreign to us, especially if we're dealing with each other, because let's just face it, there are times, and we see this all the time, where we don't respect each other enough to abide by, civility and whatever. You see this when people ask for a discount, right?
Hmm.
You're like, you know, and you ask them when you go to Walmart or you go to any other store, do you ask for a discount? Usually you don't. You just
No.
pay.
Yeah. There
But
you
when
go.
we deal with each other, we're looking for shortcuts, and we're looking for special favors, right? And
Oh, yeah.
we have to you all's point, if we're going to advance ourselves, we have to start taking all this stuff seriously, and we have to deal with each other respectfully, right?
Well, when
So
companies
you,
when companies partner up on projects and do things together, there's always a penalty if you don't comply or you back out.
Yep.
So we need to get comfortable with the penalty and understand that you need to take this serious.
Yeah.
If you're not, you're going to waste our time, have us come to the table thinking that you're ready to move forward with us, only to back out later on. Then yeah, you're going to lose or you're going to pay.
Right.
So let me ask you this. I mean, you brought up some, and thank you for sharing what you've shared thus far. This is all very good stuff that people need to hear. So you talked about Jimmy. You talked about the concept of what I'll term cultural self-esteem within the Asian community, where they don't mind setting up shop on both sides of the street because, in essence, they understand
Yeah,
that it goes back to the same family, whether that is literally or within their culture.
right.
Absolutely.
Is this a major hurdle or a major obstacle for us to overcome in exercising the discipline in this theory ring?
I, I
I'm keeping it 100. They would say I'm keeping it 100.
No, and Tommy, you and I talked about this briefly earlier. So I wish that I could say otherwise, but it is a challenge because of everything we've gone through, right? And so the way that I would suggest that we address this when we
Yes.
go about setting these up. So we got a couple things. One, let's all go into whatever initial meetings accepting that this is a part of what we have. This is going to be one of our challenges, right?
Right.
Let's just everybody be honest and say we have a history, a tradition of not trusting each other for a whole bunch of reasons. We don't even have to belabor those points. Most of us know, right? Slavery, Jim Crow, all the things that and the narrative and the social what do you call it? Social programming that we've gone through. So we know that's there. What we do to address that is what other communities do. So in the Asian communities and the other communities, shame is a big thing for them. So that's how they get people to comply in those communities. Family shame is it's so horrific. It's almost a crime, right? They want to avoid family shame, so most people comply due to the social pressure of shaming your family. That's the worst thing you can do. Now, in American society, we just talked about how you keep people honest. You put agreements in place where, and these are binding agreements that will hold up in a court of law. Because people, and this is honestly, without, and just being very, very honest with you and keeping it 100, as TD said, what white folks do is they make agreements that are ironclad and will hold up in court. And that's how, because a lot of times people think that, oh man, white folks are so prone to work together and they don't have disagreements and
They have
whatever.
no
They
choice.
Right, because you will end up in court, and that's what we have to do with our, our endeavors. We put agreements in place, and we either get an attorney within our community or get a white attorney. Doesn't matter. We just need that service, and we need someone to draw up their agreement. Everybody signs off on it, and then, like you just pointed out, Jimmy, if you want to withdraw earlier than the commitment, fine. You're going to leave with 85% of the money, or you're going to leave
Y'all
with, you know,
generous.
right. Are you gonna leave with 80%? I know you said half. Well, you said half, but you understand that if you decide to back out of this, you're gonna leave with 80% of the money that you invested, and that's how we do it. And that will
Gotcha.
keep most. And in that worst case scenario, we lose that chunk of money. Well, we lose that, but we gain 20%,
There
right?
you go. And so, otherwise, what you're saying is that with the penalty clause and
Mhm.
with the legally binding contract, you get rid of the fakers early.
Absolutely. Once they see that this is something they got to sign their name to, and
Right.
you explicitly explain, here's what happens in that worst case scenario. Everyone should take this home, pray about it, talk to your spouse, significant other, and decide, is this something you really committed to? To your point, Tommy, the next meeting we go to, we had 25 people, we have 10 at that meeting.
Well, I think with our club, I don't know, we 10 or 12 is what we started off with, but by the time it came to hand the checks out, hand your check to the treasurer. Yeah, we got down to 3 or 4 real quick. So
And that's just kind of how it goes. This is how it goes, and that's okay, right? Because what we want to do is we want to, as quickly as we can, we want to get to that group that is committed to what we're doing. Like, I mean, we go back to the Asians, and I don't have any beef with them, right? I do, sometimes I'm
I respect their
frustrated.
accomplishment. and how they've
Right.
come together.
Now I'm frustrated with how some of them treat us as customers, but then the onus is on us to decide
Right.
not to
Amen.
patronize, right?
Amen.
If you
And
want to do
that's
that,
that self-esteem thing.
exactly, exactly. Now, if you want to treat us like that, we're not going to spend our money with you. But the fact that they've been able to do it is very impressive to me. And I mentioned this last time was what you're seeing as far as the real estate space, and I know you guys have seen this all over the city. They're buying the whole commercial block,
Yes, yes, that is true. I mean, they'll buy
and you
the
can't.
strip shopping center, the
Yeah.
whole block. I mean, there's years ago, right over on Legacy, there's an Asian strip center, and I just happened to
Mhm.
stop in there. I just wanted to get something to eat, and man, I couldn't find one menu in English. You know,
See,
what I
that's the
mean,
beauty of it. That's
I
the
mean,
beauty
they cater to
to me.
themselves, and I was like, wait a minute, how do I figure out what I want here? I'm having to
Mhm.
point to stuff, ask questions, and like I said, every
Right.
menu, I can't even tell them in America. Every menu in here, no matter where I went, was all in whatever language of the owners, and but you can do that when you're in control. And that's what we
Yes.
need to understand is that you can speak whatever language you want to when it's yours. You can display it
Yes.
however you want. You serve whatever you want. You don't have to comply with what society tells you. You are free when you have the money and it's yours. But as long as you're
Right.
working for someone else, man, you got to march by their beat.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's the other thing that makes me smile when I drive by and I see all the signs and whatever their script is. What they're telling you, to your point, Jimmy, what they're saying is we don't have to assimilate. We
That's
own
right.
this. We own it. So we're catering to who we want to. We're not, I don't think, well, it probably depends on the business, but I know a lot of times in our businesses and what we do, we tend to ask ourselves, either consciously or subconsciously, we ask ourselves, well, how are white people going to think about
Thank
this?
you. Way too much
It's
concern
like,
about white people and what they're going to think.
right,
And when you start talking about coming together and doing something for yourself, you'd be surprised if you're in mixed company. How many black folks have told me when JR, you need to lower your voice. Lower my voice for what? You
right,
telling me we got to be ashamed to even talk about freeing ourselves? I mean, this is the
man.
mindset. I mean, we shouldn't talk that way around when white people are in earshot. Well, why not?
Oh, I've had this very conversation with white folks because, um, the one if I'm in company with people that I like, and I want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding. The thing that I do is I remind them. I said, when you're around people who say, kiss me, I'm German, or that say I love that I'm Italian. I ask, does that offend you? And they obviously, they without question, they'll say no. I think it's great that they love that they're Italian. So I always tell them it's the same way with my community. If I say I'm glad to be black or whatever, that does you should not assume that means I'm anti-white,
Right.
right? There doesn't have to be an opposite to that. And the
Correct.
same, and we'll have a deeper conversation sometime. I'll tease them and say, if you guys had let us hold on to our ethnicity, then I wouldn't have to say black. I mean, it wouldn't have to be an umbrella. I could say I'm glad that I'm Ghanaian, or I'm glad that I'm from Sierra Leone, but unfortunately we weren't able to hold on to that. So we have this umbrella. Uh, but yeah, we do have to be okay with this thought of a collective, cooperative economics is what they say with the seven principles, uh, you know, of Kwanzaa, right? This is a principle that we need to, like I said, it goes back to the African proverb that we talked about earlier. We're trying to go further, right? And the only way to do it is to link up with people with like minds. And to Tommy's question about how do we do that based on some of the hurdles that we know we have in our community with lack of trust, um, consumerism, the need to go spend because we want everybody to see how well we're doing. We need that validation. We have to do that using legal legal agreements. Because again, I mean, if we want to learn from other communities, like I said, uh, a lot of people assume that white folks trust each other. It's not that they trust each other. It's that they put agreements in place so everyone acts accordingly.
And they
Right.
will sue your behind
In a
Well,
New York minute. In a
yes.
New
Well,
York
that's what
minute.
it's supposed to be.
without blinking.
In a New
That is
York
the way
minute.
it's supposed to be. Well, like I said, man, when you look at, take someone like Bill Gates. when he's selling his operating system, just getting his company off the ground to IBM, he had no reservation whatsoever about him being white and doing business with another white business, and to mutually help each other. So we
Right.
should not feel bad when we start talking about coming together to mutually help ourselves. I don't know why folks have to be afraid of that and fear that, as if us trying to free ourselves and come up somehow threatens other people to the point that they're going to retaliate against us or hold us back. I mean, I just don't think that way. I think the only thing that holds us back is us.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've been conditioned. It's unfortunate, and we have to try to unlearn this. But we've been conditioned to placate, right? Because we want to be, we want to be, we don't want to be threatening. We don't want to draw unnecessary attention to each other because we want to assimilate really, really badly, and we've been trying to assimilate the whole time we've been here. And at some point, we got to accept that that's not going to happen, right? The other communities have figured that out, right? They said, okay, I can't assimilate because I obviously look different. I have, I speak a different language. I come from a different place. So instead of focusing on assimilating and being accepted, we're just going to go and open a business. We're going to open businesses, and
Right.
we're going to be self-sufficient.
And build
We're
wealth.
going to,
I mean, how
right,
can you be equal? Let's for instance, the guy sitting on the corner, sleeping under the bridge. How in the world can he be equal to me when I'm giving
right,
him money? He has his hand out. I'm giving him money. How
right,
can how can I be equal to Oprah Winfrey or any other billionaire when I got my hand out trying to get what they have? They
right,
don't look at me and say, "Oh, okay, Jimmy, you're my equal." If we don't have wealth, we're not building wealth. When other people look at us and think that we're thieves and thugs and always got a hand out, always trying to get over, you will never ever be there. Nobody's going to accept you as their equal under those conditions. When they start looking at you thinking, there's a group of people over there that's doing something, that has something, that's built something. Okay, you're now my equal. I can respect you and look upon you as an equal. But as long as I have this thought in my head that you're coming after me, that you're a threat to me, that you just want what I have and you don't want to work for, you're not building anything, really, in the overall bigger picture, you're not even contributing. You're taking more out of the system than you're putting in. As long as those thoughts are still in people's head, it's going to be hard for anyone to consider you their equal.
right. Agreed. Agreed.
So as we close out these last, oh man, it's almost 5 minutes until the hour. So we talked about the concept or the topic for tonight's show was the black economy, undercapitalized or underutilized. And so we've talked a little bit about how to overcome this undercapitalization with which Ray has spoken so eloquently about, with leverage, collective leverage, which other groups have been doing for decades upon decades in order to build wealth, in order to build capital, in order to build businesses. And we talk about undisciplined, the unwillingness or the inability to be able to execute on that. We talked about some of the issues there. Coming down to a lack of trust. Obviously, there's some cultural issues there, some experiential issues.
Is that the warning, Tom?
No, that is not the warning.
Okay.
But there are some cultural issues, experiential issues that have to deal with the lack of trust. But at the end of the day, it's attainable for anybody. So if we talk about Ray and Jimmy, my friends, where we go and how because that's what started us out. How do we close the gap? Can Black America close
Yes.
the wealth gap in America? What are the top 2 to 3 things that we have to do at a cultural level, collectively, in order to make that happen within the next generation?
Tom, we have to start working together. We have to come together and start pooling our resources. And everyone out here watching this show or who will watch this show in the future, we're going to put Ray's information down in the description. Please give the brother a call. If you got a group of people that want to do something, give him a call and ask him and let him advise you on some strategies that you can do to come together and how to make it work. So that's what we have to do, Tom. We have to stop talking. We have to start doing. Um, we're not going to be perfect at it at first, but the
Nope.
more we do it, the better we become at it. And guess what? We can then pass this knowledge and experience down in wealth to the next generation.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right.
And Ray, also, what say you on the same subject and what we're going to do after we have you kind of close out on your recommendations is we want to make sure that everybody knows the best way to reach you,
Okay.
so that when they need help that you can service them and helping them build wealth, helping them build capital, helping them to grow and expand their businesses. They know how to find you. So what are your thoughts on what we have to do to close this gap within the next generation?
Within the next generation, just to piggyback on what Jimmy said, we have to learn to work together, and we have to fight through those things that we've been taught, not to do, not as far as not trusting each other. I think there's specific industries that we need to target as well, right? We talked about real estate. I think IT is a space that we have to be a part of because IT
Right.
is going to be is going to touch every facet of our lives going forward. The information technology
Now,
space.
now, now let's very brief cliff notes. The why part of that on technology, why that
Um,
is important. I
well,
mean, and especially for a community of folks who aren't heavily engaged in STEM yet.
Okay. The just real quick, the reason is, like I said, it's going to touch every facet of our lives going forward. So
Yes.
with that being said, the amount of opportunity is going to be so vast that we will do ourselves a disservice by not becoming a part of it. There's going to be a tremendous amount of money, tremendous amount of opportunity in that space, and so we have to become STEM literate. We have to start forcing ourselves to embrace math because math was actually invented in arithmetic was invented in Africa. So
Absolutely.
this notion that we are not good at math is such an oxymoron. It's crazy. Like because we don't know where we come from. We don't know our past. So that's another story. That's a whole nother subject. But so we have to embrace STEM because it's going to be so pervasive in life. And so you're talking about catching up. We're gonna if we don't get into it, I mean, we're gonna be so far behind that there's gonna be a question as far as what do we do with this community that can contribute. So IT, real estate, we absolutely have to get involved in equities and because most of us, if you guys look at the studies, we missed out on the largest bull run in the history of the country. Most of us,
Yep.
because of our what do you call it? Our lack of our risk. I can't think
Would
of
you
the
say
word.
would you say lack of risk or lack of knowledge or something different?
No, from most of the studies, our we were just we're our community is historically risk averse.
Yes.
We've always been, and so because of that, we to a large degree, our community missed out on the longest bull run in the history of the country. Because, but to a certain degree, Tommy, I think you're right as far as lack of knowledge. But all the studies say that we are historically a very risk averse community, which is kind of weird, right? Because a lot of us play the lottery and we do this kind of stuff. Uh, I mean, it doesn't even
No,
make sense.
I mean, Ray, you bring up a beautiful point. I mean, think about it. What is the likelihood of you building a retirement on the lottery versus investing in the equities market or in real estate?
And there's your
Oh man.
$20 a week right there in lottery tickets.
Oh man. I know people who have shoe boxes
I
and shoe
know.
boxes
They
of failed tickets.
track the numbers and they just trying to repeat them and find a pattern. And yeah, there's your $20 a week right there on lottery tickets.
I mean,
Quick
it's
picks
crazy.
and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So those like real quick, those are the areas that I think we need to get into, and we need to do it collectively, like Jimmy already pointed out.
So,
That
so Ray,
is
let me
it.
ask you this: if there's a group of people out there who want to come together and figure out a way to pool their money to do something, I mean, can they give you a call? Can you consult with them? As a maybe take them on as a client group to help advise them.
Yeah, I would be absolutely interested, and also I'd be interested in being a part of the group if they, if they would have me. I would
How do they
absolutely.
contact you? How do they reach you?
Well, we're going to
So
put
they
your
can reach
phone
me.
number and email in
Okay.
the description, but you can go ahead and give it
Okay.
to us now if you want.
Yeah, they can. They're welcome to call me. They can call me at 214-810-5881. Again, that's 214-810-5881. They can hit me via email at info. If they on my business email, it's info@rayhodgesfg.com. So that's info at rayhodgesf like financial g like group.com. So they can hit me in those two ways, or either way, or they can text me as well. Um, but I'd love to, even if we just brainstorm, if they just want to kick around some ideas, I'll share what I've heard, or I've talked to people about that works. And so, yeah, I'm always interested in having that conversation.
Now, here's a
Always.
brother that's willing to put his own money up to help join your and get your investment group off the ground. So, people, please don't waste the brother's time. Don't be calling him with no money to invest. Now, if you have some money that you want to do something with, and I'm going to tell you, man, this is what I told my daughter, and now she's gotten hooked. I told her, I said that the best money you'll ever make is money you didn't have to work for. When you put money
Man.
to work for you, and she has now gotten really super excited about the investment game, trying to invest as much money now as possible. When she actually made a little money off her investment, and she's like, "Yeah, Dad, this is the best way to make money when I don't have to work for it. Let money work for me."
That's absolutely right. There's a lot of conversations around that we, especially our community, needs to stop trading time for money. We
Right.
need to stop doing that.
Absolutely, and that's we Ray. We're gonna have you to come back so we can start talking about that. We're gonna
Okay.
have to get you back sometime soon. Maybe not next week, but we're gonna have to get you back pretty soon because there's a lot of stuff that you've dropped, a lot of seeds that you've dropped, Ray. That I almost hate that we've got to cut this conversation off, but it's an hour. But there are a lot of seeds that we're gonna have to let kind of germinate. We're gonna have to bring back and talk a little bit more about this because it's
Yes,
really
we'd love to have you
about
back.
absolutely. It's really about educating, our constituents, our consumers, and our communities, so that we can finally take advantage of all of the opportunities that are available to us. And it really comes down to knowledge,
Mhm.
Right.
knowledge,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
discipline.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have to stop telling each other that there aren't opportunities.
Right.
So, we have kind of this self-defeat is it's also a part of our kind of cultural makeup. The system is against us.
Right.
But we have to start looking out with a positive outlook. We're like, it's a lot of opportunities out there. We just have to pursue them.
Or there's belief that
Absolutely.
white people somehow are coming together to hold us back. Um,
Right.
so Tom, since we're a little
They
bit
have
over,
Jimmy. Mm.
okay, different story. I don't think now they're smart enough or mean enough to hold us back. I think they've programmed us to hold ourselves back, and everybody can just sit back and watch us self-destruct. But go ahead and Tom and close us out with a prayer, man.
All right, we will go ahead and bow our heads, dear Lord and gracious Father. We come before you today, thanking you for breathing within us the breath of life. We thank you for bringing us together as brothers and as friends, Father. We thank you for blessing us with the energy. We thank you for blessing us with the vitality to worship you, Father. We thank you for all the things that you have done for us. We thank you for protecting our families. We thank you for protecting our children. We thank you for protecting our parents, Father. We thank you for our ancestors whose shoulders we stand on, understanding that if it were not for them, we would not be here today. So we would ask that you continue to be mindful of everything that they have invested in us, everything that they have poured into us, that we might live and that we might live more fruitfully, Father, through everything that you have blessed them to pour into us. We ask you would keep us focused. You ask that you would keep us mindful. And Father, we thank you for manhood. We thank you for
Yes.
Black manhood. We thank you for everything that you've done to keep us standing, to keep us fighting so that we can continue to strengthen and grow our communities as fathers, as husbands, as uncles, as leaders, as caretakers, fathers. Continue to strengthen us so that we may continue to do your will on earth as it is in heaven. And in your precious name we pray. Amen.
Let the
Amen.
congregation say Amen.
All right,
Amen.
and we are not going to pass around the collection plate. You get to
Well,
keep the money.
not yet. Once we figure out how to get a virtual one going,